we've lived on this old farm for 50 years. We bought it in 1970 when we were 20 years old. And our dream was to be as self-sufficient as possible. And I'm an artist. I do a lot of different things, but the two of us have made our lives in the arts, and we've always worked from here as it's evolved over the years.
I'm an author. I write books, and I'm also a photographer. So Peter and I we got married when we were 19. We met in a blind date, got married when we were 19. We've been married for over 50 years. In 1970 was the first Earth Day in the United States. And Peter and I went to that and were profoundly influenced by it. So we based our lives on a life that was more or less focused on environmental issues.
Well, Powning Designs came into existence around 1989 when we were building a big new studio and incorporated. Before then, we didn't have an overarching company. It was Beth did her writing. I mostly made pots, and Beth concentrated on her enterprises, writing and gardening, growing a lot of food and other things.
Raising Jake.
And a kid.
Yeah, the kid.
And that wasn't goats, yeah, but also a human kid.
There were many places in which we were not living up to our ideals at all. I mean, I can remember packing pots to ship using bubble wrap and thinking, oh, I shouldn't be using this stuff.
To be fair, we started out packing in hay.
And everything.
And the calories would get it and say, stop doing that, you're ruining our carpets.
I can remember for years we would think, oh, wouldn't it be so great if we had an electric car that we could power ourselves from the sun.
And one of the things we feel like with this solar array that gets us to net zero is that it will show you can do it. I mean, you could buy a new SUV or you could put in solar power, and which is actually going to be something you can feel good about, that actually has a long-term trajectory where you get returns all the way along the line and almost no maintenance. It's a good investment. We've got a 20 to 30 year window in which that's going to be generating all the power we use, and the money we put into it, we're getting dividends back in not only the environmental dividend, which is huge, but in terms of what we would be paying for power, especially as power goes up. Our costs don't go up. As the cost of power goes up, the money we put into it up front, that isn't going to grow. We've done it, and we get electric power from now till we're probably 6 feet under at no cost. So that's huge. I mean, just from an economic point of view, that's a no-brainer to me at this point.
It's the sun. It's our star out there. It's heating our water. It's a really good feeling. People who don't have time to grow vegetables and, make baskets and, simply don't have the time to even take care of themselves, as you were saying, they can vote. They can vote. And that's what I can see people who can't live the way we're living. They can vote for people who will make the world the kind of world that their children can grow up in. I have an interesting story to tell. One of my concerns when we were talking about doing this was we're going to have this big thing in our field. And I thought, what's that going to look like? And then I'm thinking, the neighbors across here are going to have this big thing in their view. They didn't ask for it. There it's going to be. And it was much huger than I thought it was going to be. When I first saw it, I kind of went, oh my, it's huge. It's huge. And so we got in the car and we drove over and looked at it from our neighbor's point of view. And I thought, yeah, there it is. So we get a message on Messenger from our neighbor. And she says, we've been thinking about doing solar power. And we look out our window and there's this big, beautiful solar power display across the valley. How did you do it? Tell us who did it. Can we come over and see it? Can we talk to you about it? And I was so relieved, and I realized it made me probably forever look at it differently, because I'm just looking at it and thinking, sun, power, sun, and they were looking at it the same way. She actually called it beautiful. And I think that's quite an interesting story. So there it is.